you say it's what case?
What was the nominative?
Nominative. And how can you be dead positive that it's a nominative?
Because of the article?
Absolutely so. You know, that's the feminine nominative article, don't you? Suppose, you know, just like he'd forgotten as to the case hamartios, hadn't he? Well, the only way that he was going to get that case, since he'd forgotten it, is to know that in association with apa, you have the ablative. Now then, when I might forget aletheia as far as its form, but if I've got an article, I've got a dead giveaway that I know that that is a nominative. And I know these three things about it. I know its case, I know its gender, and I know its number. Now tell me what all three of those things are.
For aletheia?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's nominative case, feminine gender, and what was the other thing you wanted?
Number.
And singular.
That's absolutely. And I can get all of that from the article, can't I? Certainly. All right, now, what is the verb?
The verb is estin.
All right, now, parse for me estin.
It's third person singular of Amy.
Right.
And translated, it is.
All right. And the truth, it is, but you don't give a double subject, do you? For the verb. The truth is not. Now, what case is hame in?
Hame in is locative.
How can you tell?
Because of the proposition in.
Absolutely no. Takes the locative, generally speaking. All right, and the truth is not in. Now, I forgot to ask you, what part of speech is hame in?
Hame in is first person. How do you personal pronoun?
Okay, it's a personal pronoun
Right.
in the first person. Personal pronoun. Okay, I see I've really got to drill you fellows with reference to parts of speech since your English teachers didn't do it for us. All right, good. All right, number 9 now, Dwayne.
An homologomen, tos hamartios, hemon, pistos estin kai dikaios, hina aphe, hemin tos hamartios, kai katharise, hemos apa pasis adikaios.
All right, now translate it.
If we confess our sin, He is faithful and just. Does sin have to be translated every time?
Sure does.
Yeah. In order that He might forgive us.
That's right.
Okay. Sin.
What?
The sin.
The what?
The sin.
Number?
Sins. Plural.
That's right. The sins?
The sins. And cleansed. And well, He might cleanse us. Cleansed us. Might have cleansed us from.
Not might have, but might cleanse.
Cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
All right. Fine and dandy. Again, we've got a third-class conditional clause there. Okay, now parsum homologomen.
It's the first person plural present subjunctive active of homologehu.
Okay.
I confess.
Now then, what case is tas hamartios?
It's the genitive here.
No.
Then he might Oh, wait a minute. If we confess our sin, it'd be genitive.
No.
Accusative.
Why?
Well, the article.
Yeah, but you did it 3 times before you hit it. You got to get your articles.
Well, I was putting hemon in front of it,
That's right.
And so I just, because it changed the other one before.
Just a minute, let me get even through here. It's then is what? What case?
Well,
Hamartios?
with the article, the accusative.
Accusative. Function.
It's the direct object of the verb homologeo. Gomen.
All right. Now what case is him on?
It's genitive.
Function.
Genitive of possession.
That's right. Our sins. Now, Wes wouldn't know that, but you should know that. I'm going to keep drilling you. All right. Now then, Wes, you had a question.
Well, I was noticing Dwayne was saying the singular, and I was just wondering if it was the plural.
No, it's the plural. If we confess our sins, that has to do with what? Our actions, doesn't it? Now, our actions. Talking about our defilement. How do we take care of defilement today? We go to the priest and take along with us a rabbit. He'll kill it after we laid our hands on it and all this and confessed our sins. No. If we confess our sins. All right. Now, any other question there? What case is pistos?
It's nominative.
Function.
It's the subject.
Okay. What case is dikaios?
It's a nominative.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back
I was
just a
just
little
gonna
bit.
ask you about
Just
that.
a little bit. Parsome estin.
It's a third person singular.
Subject.
He.
Where's it found?
It's in the verb estin.
Okay, now then. What is pistos?
It's an adjective. Or no.
Yeah.
Yeah, an adjective.
Case.
It's an nominative.
Function.
Predicate nominative.
Predicate nominative. See, your subject is in your verb. He is faithful. He is faithful. So your subject's in your verb. Therefore, pistos has to be a predicate nominative adjective. Okay, now what case is dikaios?
It's a nominative.
Function.
Well, predicate nominative.
Exactly right, because you have to supply.
Yeah.
Estin.
One thing here would, that wouldn't, because there's chi in between the two nominatives like that, that's not Granville sharp.
No, that's not grand. That
Needs
has
an
to-
article in front of one.
It needs to have the article in front of
Okay.
one. Okay. Okay. He is faithful and he is just. All right. Now then, we haven't had a famous, so we won't bother with that. What case is him in?
Well, I would say dative.
All right. Function.
It's the indirect object.
All right. What case is tos hamartios?
Accusative.
Function.
The direct object.
The direct object of aphe. You haven't had that, but
Of him.
all right. Now parsome katharise.
It's a third person singular. First aorist subjunctive of katharizo.
Okay.
I-
Voice.
Active.
Active. Third person singular, first aorist, active subjunctive, katharizo, cleanse. Okay. Case of hemos.
Accusative.
Function.
The direct object.
Direct
Verb.
object of the verb. Okay. Case of adikaios.
Accusative.
No.
No? Oh, then it'd be cleanse us from hapa. Okay.
What's it used with?
It's used with the preposition.
Used with the preposition apa. Isn't that right?
I didn't look at it.
All right. Now then, don't pass up your giveaways. Don't pass up your articles. Don't pass up your prepositions. Because your prepositions and your articles are your dead giveaways when it comes to the matter of case. See? And you know, apa is always used with the ablative, and so you know that adikaios has to be ablative. All right. Now, what case is passes?
It's ablative.
All right, it's exactly the same thing you had in the other verse, isn't it?
So if it's got an accusative ending.
No, it doesn't have an
Yeah.
accusative ending.
Well, see, one thing I was just kind of looking at. See, tos hamartios, in after homologomen.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's accusative, right?
Yeah, that's accusative.
Well, it's the same. That word is the same as in at the end of verse 7, and that's genitive or ablative, but it's identical ending and everything. The cases are the same as far as they're written.
All right, but no, that's
Just what I'm not.
that's what you have with reference to your first declension in your genitive and accusatives. Us.
Oh, I got to learn the verb then.
You got to learn that first declension now and watch it. All right, Wes, you finish it. Verse 10 here.
Excuse me. En epomen pati amar te kamen sustain
That's right. Good. Sustain.
Poimen
Boyuman.
Otan kai ha lagos altu uk estin en hemin.
All right.
Translate it?
Yes.
Did it again. If we say
That's right.
that we have not sinned,
All right. You haven't had that, but that's exactly the way it is. That happens to be a perfect passive. If we say that we have not sinned, okay.
we make him a liar, and his word is not in us.
All right. Now then, again, parsme apomen.
Epomen is first person plural, present subjunctive active of apon.
Not present. First person plural.
Oh, is the first person plural, first aorist,
Second aorist.
second aorist subjunctive active.
Yes. Of Lego.
Lego.
Okay. Now then, parsme poiumen. Poiumen.
Poiumen is, well, it's first person plural,
Right.
which is present subjunctive active.
Not present subjunctive, but present. You'll always have an O, omega, or an eta for subjunctive.
Present indicative active.
Present indicative active of what? Oh, you haven't had it. Now, what case is auton?
Oh, okay, there it is.
What case is auton?
It's accusative.
Accusative. Function.
Would act as the direct object.
Okay. What case is sustain?
Accusative.
Function.
An object.
That's right. And here's a case. Look, fellas. Here's a case where you've got what we call a double object. We make him a liar. Now you're going to learn in syntax what a double object is. A double object is something that is a personal and an impersonal. Or it can be a direct and a predicate. In this case, you've got personal and impersonal, haven't we? Make him, personal pronoun. Liar, impersonal, right? So you got the double object. We make him a liar. All right? What case is halagos?
It's nominative.
Nominative. Function?
Subject.
Subject to what?
Of the verb asked in.
Exactly right. Okay, what cases out too?
Is genitive.
Genitive. No, you don't know that at this stage. What cases hame in?
Amen is locative.
Okay, locative. All right, fine. Now then, you see, we have done the first chapter of 1 John. What I'd suggest you do is go back over it. Just keep going back over it, reading it, find and watching your subjects, watching your objects, watching your prepositions, okay? Now, I wanted to get that far just to get you familiar with your Greek New Testament, because now we're going to go back to the book. I see we must go back in order to get this taken care of and help us get caught up. Now then, we are
51.
on, we've had the first aorist passive indicative and subjunctive and the future passive indicative. That's number 50. All right, now then we are ready then for lesson number 51. Isn't that right?
41.
41, I'm sorry. On page 142. Now, for tomorrow, we will do this lesson. We will go through it, but I want you to be ready. I think we've done this vocabulary, but I want you to do it again. Have that vocabulary down, and we'll have our little vocabulary. We'll do our lesson, and then what we will do is I'll give you assignments in exercises and the New Testament from here on out, okay? All right, that's good.
Where's the decline?
Today we want to continue on with our book in lesson number 41 on page 142. And we will now go along with both the text and the translation of 1 John. And I think this will be of help to you and give you a little bit of an incentive as you find out that you can translate from the Word. And some of these things would be of encouragement to you, as we also have to learn some more forms concerning the first year grammar. Now in lesson number 41, you have the continuation of the aorist passive. Now, I'm not sure whether you have observed this or not, but you're going to observe it in this lesson, that when it comes to the aorist passive, you do have some rather unusual changes which take place. Now I want to read and try to explain some of these things as we go along. The formation of the first aorist and future passive as given in the previous lesson is typical of all verbs with stems ending in a vowel. Now then, as we've had the typical endings, typical first aorist and future passive for the verbs ending in a vowel, now he's going to give you some verbs that end in mutes. Now with stems ending in the mutes, and you ought to review paragraphs 217 and 218, these suffer euphonic changes in the mute before the passive suffix theta eta, theta epsilon. Now then he gives you that change which takes place with reference to P, B, and Phi, Kappa, Gamma, Chi, and then Tau, Delta, and Theta. Now the little scheme which he has worked up, is the one that you will profit by memorizing. P beta phi before the theta equals phi theta. Phi theta. Now the kappa gamma chi before theta equals the chi theta. Now the tau delta theta before theta is going to equal the sigma theta. Now that little scheme, memorize that with reference to your mutes. Now he gives some explanation, and this is what I want you to note, because there seems to be an irregularity. After these changes are made, the conjugation follows the form of eluthane. Thus, he's going to take LAPO. Now observe, won't you please, that LAPO is the first person singular present indicative active, isn't it? LAPO. Now then, the aorist passive indicative of LAPO, observe this, elaphthane. Now what he's telling you is, when it comes to this particular aorist passive indicative, you're going to follow precisely the same conjugation as you have for eluthane. Now you ought to turn back, and I'm going to have you turn back to that particular passage on page 139. 139. And notice 339. Eluthane, eluthase, eluthe. Eluthamen, eluthati, eluthason, luthanai. You see the scheme? Thane, thase, they, thamen, thati, thason, thanai. Plus your augment. Now then, let's turn back. That happens to be the first aorist passive indicative of luo. But he's going to say, look, I want you to deal with the aorist passive of LAPO. Now look at it. Elaphthane. What do you see there? Well, according to the scheme of the lesson, the P has changed to phi. Isn't that right? Are you following? The P is changed to phi. Then you add your regular suffixes plus your augment. But, what has happened to the stem? What has happened to the stem? You remember the second aorist of LAPO is a lipon? Remember that? Or have you forgotten? Elipon. That's the second aorist active. All right, now then, when you come to the aorist passive indicative of LAPO, it's elaphthane. See, it's not elaphthane. The epsilon iota remains. So there are some rather unusual changes to observe. Now, don't get panicky here at this point. Just follow along with me and observe what he is saying, because we are going to give some explanation in this regard just a little bit later. Now the aorist passive subjunctives is laphtho. Now observe, you have your regular subjunctive endings, tho, thase, they, thom, thati, thoson. Okay? But again, the stem is lay. You will see that, of course, as usual, the subjunctive doesn't take the augment. Now then, the aorist passive infinitive, there isn't any problem there. You know, infinitives do not take the augment and follows the regular. Now then, when it comes to the future passive indicative of such a mute verb, it's laphthaesomai, and follows your regular scheme. All right, now then, paragraph 350. The stem of the aorist passive participle is made on the aorist passive stem with the participle ending in newt. The stem of the aorist passive participle of luo is luthent. Now then, the declension of the aorist passive participle of luo. And here it is. Thes, thentos, thenti, thenta, thentes, thenton, thesi, thentos. Your masculine as far as your aorist passives are concerned, what declension are they going to follow? Thes, thentos, thenti, thenta, thentes, thenton, thesi, thentos. What declension? It's your third declension, isn't it? All right, now then, your feminine, luthesa, first declension. Neuter, luthentos, luthen, third declension. Now he gives you the explanation of the formation of these particular words in the observation, which are not difficult to understand. But what he does do in number 5 on page 144, which I think I ought to draw to your attention, note the position of the accent on the aorist passive participle in comparison with other participles. Now I want you to go back, put a little note there, go back particularly to your present participles and observe the changes which take place with reference to the accent. Now paragraph 351. The aorist passive participle of, now then, hempo. You're having the same changes for your aorist passive participle that you had for your regular verb that he gave to you as far as lepo is concerned. He's using hempo here. And so he's saying the P changes to the phi. See? All right, and the gamma changes to the chi. The theta changes to the sigma theta. The alpha changes to the eta theta. The omicron changes to the omega theta. All right? Now then, let's just emphasize at this juncture the endings for these participles. It's pemphes, pemphesa, pemphen. Octhes, octhesa, octhen. Pesthes, pesthesas, pesthen. Genethes, genethesa, genethen. Phanerothes, phanerothesas, phanethen. Now then, you observe, don't you, that he's just given you the nomatives. Then you have to work out the scheme. Will you do that now? As far as your practice is concerned, you take page 143 and you work out those particular schemes as far as the passive participle of those particular words are concerned. Now you just have to do that. If you slack off on it, you're going to come up short. You're not going to see the declension as far as the aorist passive participle of these words are concerned like he wants you to, and it will show up a little bit later. Now then he says, I'm going to give you the scheme of the second aorist passive participle of grapho, phino, and strepho. So as far as grapho is concerned, the second aorist. Now remember, the second aorist does not have the theta, that is, in the passive. Second aorist does not have the theta in the aorist passive. So when you come to the participle of the second aorist of grapho, it's graphes, graphesa, graphen. Phino is phines, phinesa, phinen. Strepho is strophes, strophesa, strophen. Now then, observe that you do not have a change as far as the stem is concerned in grapho, although the phi is showing you that it is a sign of the second aorist passive. However, when you come to phino, you do have a change in the stem, don't you? the iota is dropped out. When you come to strepho, the epsilon is changed to the alpha. So here you have the changes which take place in the second aorist stem. Now, paragraph number 352. The aorist passive participle is used in all the principal constructions that have been studied thus far. So he's just saying, okay, boys, the scheme that you have learned here, apply it to everything you've learned before. Now then, paragraph 353, and this is what is going to help you, boys. That's this. It cannot with certainty be told beforehand what form the aorist passive a verb will have. The aorist passive stem must be known. So what does that mean to you? That means simply this, that the verbs that are given to you, you must know by memory their stem. Now he's going to give you some illustrations here. Number one, some of the second aorist passives found in the New Testament, besides those already given, are. Now then he gives you some of the second aorist passives, such as kapesomai, I beat or I strike. It comes from the present of kapto. Kapto. So how am I going to know? Well, I have to learn that kapto as kapesomai. See? Now then, when it comes to krupto, notice what you have as far as your second aorist passive of krupto is a krubbein. A krubbein. Now when it comes to sparrow, I sow. Esparain. Esparain. All right, now then when it comes to stello or apostello, I send. It's estalain. Estalain. Now when it comes to anoigo, I open. It is a noigain. Then he says the future passive has these forms. Anoikthesomai, anoigesomai. Now put out to the side there, memorize. Memorize. Because that's the only way you're going to know them. Okay, now paragraph 2. Some verbs have apparently irregular forms in the first aorist and future passive. And there they are. Now, what we're getting ready to do, fellas, is this, as far as our Greek is concerned. We're getting ready to learn what is called principal parts. And that is this. A verb will appear in about 6 or 7 principal tenses. They don't occur in all of them. But now just hold your hand here to give you an idea what we're going to be doing a little bit later. I want you to hold your hand there and turn to the back of your book to page 232. And I want to read that paragraph 23 there. The various tenses are built on the verb stem or root with certain modifications of the verb stem and with additions of suffixes. In Greek, verbs are classified according to the method of forming the present stem from the verb stem or root. From the verb stem, the present stem is formed in several ways. All right, now he talks about non-thematic root classes. For instance, dunamai occurs in the present and occurs in the future as dunesomai, and it occurs in the aorist passive as a dun thing. Now, when you look down to the next page here, take for instance didomi. Okay, you got didomi, occurs in the present. Here is the first person future singular of didomai is doso. Then the first person singular of the aorist of didomai is edoka. Now the perfect active is dedoka. The perfect passive is dedomai. And the aorist passive is edothain. Now you see, those are the forms, what you call principal parts. Now, they're not all that bad, but you're going to say, well, they're not good either. Well, it just means that there's a great deal of memorizing before you, but again, let me say this, memorize it to the fullest as far as each lesson is concerned. Now then, if you will memorize each lesson thoroughly, such as you have this one, and please put out as far as akuo, balo, gnosko, agrafo, kaleo, lambano, and horao, please put out to the side of that, also memorize. So you've got quite a few words here to memorize for tomorrow. Okay? Now then, what you must do when you come to the present of akuo, you must be able to give me the first aorist passive and the future passive of akuo in the first person. Akusthein, akusteisomai. Those are the particular principal parts that you must learn at the present time. Now then, as I was looking through this particular lesson here, I am just going to give you a couple of, let's see, I'll give you 3 sentences to do. Now then, from your Greek to the English, I want you to do number 1. I want you to do number 3. And I want you to do number 7. Okay? Number 1, number 3, number 7. Now then, as far as our Greek text is concerned, in 1 John, this is what I want you to do in 1 John. I want you to take the first 2 sentences. First 2 sentences. Verses, excuse me. Number 1 and number 2. And see, your number 2 ends with kai, peri, halu, tu, cosmu. Okay? That's where it ends. Now, I realize that we have rather a heavy assignment for tomorrow. Well, it may mean that you'll have to cut your afternoon nap a little short. But this is very important, exceedingly so, because we're getting now into learning the tenses. We've had the present, we've had the imperfect, we've had the future, we've had the aorist, first aorist and second aorist. Now then, with reference to these tenses, you're learning that some of these tenses are different with reference to the passive voices, see? And you will be confronted with these all the way through the reading of your Greek New Testament. So we trust that you will profit much by virtue of the study of this lesson, along with the exercises. Now, I'm not going to assign you the vocabulary of the next lesson. We're going to simply do that with the next lesson when we come to it tomorrow. Because I think you've got enough to memorize at the present time, because you've got quite a lot there. You have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 verbs from the standpoint of principal parts. At least one facet of principal, not all of them, but just some, as well as the exercises 1, 3, and 7, and then 2 verses of 1 John chapter 2. Okay? All right,
As well as the participles.
Eh?
As well as.
Well, yes, as well as your passive participles. All right, fine and dandy. All right, let's take our books and turn now to lesson number 42. We have observed in this particular first-year Greek grammar that we've had a lot of forms for participles. What is a participle? If you were to define a participle, what is a participle?
A verbal noun.
What does that mean?
A noun in form that acts like a verb in function.
Well, it's a part of speech that functions both as a verbal and as a substantival. So you have your adverbial uses of the participle and you have your adjectival uses of the participle. Now then, joy upon joy, you have another one. And that's what this lesson's all about. And that's called the infinitive. The infinitive is going to act much like the participle. However, you're not going to be bothered with long declensions of the infinitive like you are with the participle. All right, now let's just observe some of these things. But he says this, as far as this lesson is concerned, it deals with some of the irregular nouns of the third declension. And he's going to give you some of them. But let's do the vocabulary. Maybe we ought to, once again, simply repeat the vocabulary here. Anti.
Anti.
Axios.
Axios.
Epithumeo.
Epithumeo.
Nephele.
Nephele.
Pascha.
Pascha.
Pasco.
Pasco.
Now notice, I want you to know the second aorist of Pasco 2, it's epathon.
Epathon.
Okay? Sigao.
Sigao.
Sunastheo.
Sunastheo.
Phabeomai.
Phabeomai.
Phaneo.
Phaneo.
Chronezo.
Chronizo.
Now that's, haven't we had chronos, the noun? Okay, here's the verbal form. Chronizo. As I spend time, chronos is time or season. Now then, in paragraph 356, I want you to learn these. Learn the forms of the following irregular nouns of the third declension given in paragraph 21. Ganuni, gune, woman. Thrix, hair. Kuon, dog. Us, ear. Hudor, water. Now then, turn in the back of your books to paragraph number 12. Will you please? Paragraph number 12. Now here in paragraph number 12, he gives you the declension of these irregular words that he has given to us in this particular lesson. It's found on page 221. 221. Now, the forms in the brackets do not occur as far as your Greek New Testament is concerned. But in order to know your declension, you need to know them so that you can go right down the line in your declension. Now, there's the third declension. All right, now number 357. And that is the crux of this particular lesson. The infinitive, as we have learned, has tense and voice, but it has no manner of affirmation and is not a mode, or it has no manner in which is distinguishable by way of declaration. There are a great many uses of the infinitive, and note carefully some of the uses of the infinitive in the following. Now, he gives you quite a list. And let me say this, the better you can learn the infinitive now, the less trouble you're going to have later on. So it would be a good idea to get a hold of this infinitive as well as possible, so that when you have your exercises and the occurrence of the infinitive in your reading, you will not have as much difficulty. So let's look at it. Number one, as an indeclinable verbal noun of neuter gender, the infinitive may be used in any case, not the vocative, with or without the article. With the article, it is indeclinable. But the neuter article with the infinitive is declined and shows the case of the infinitive. Now, all he's saying is just simply this. When the infinitive occurs without the article, you can't tell what case it is. Sometimes you can by way of its function. But when you do have the article with the infinitive, that's going to tell you what case the infinitive is. And in that sense, then, you can tell it's used as far as a substantive. All right, now then, he gives you an illustration. It is good for thee to enter into life. All right. It is good for you to do what? To enter into life. Ace ailting is in the nominative case. Now, how in the world would you know that? It is good to enter. Now, it's used with reference to Amy, see? Therefore, it is used in a predicate nominative sense. Ace ailting. It is good for thee enter into life. Now then, eilthamen, proskunesi. We came to worship. Okay, proskunesi is in the dative case. Well, how in the world would you know that? Well, in this construction, the infinitive is common for the expression of purpose. Well, we came. We came to do something. And so, he's saying you've got a dative, because dative is going to show a purpose or advantage. Now then, number 3. They sought to destroy his work. Now this is a little easier by way of determining the case, because you have the to, right? To, katalusai, is in the genitive case. To and the infinitive is common in the New Testament to express purpose. Now he's told you in 2 and 3 that the simple infinitive can show purpose, and 2 plus the infinitive shows purpose. Do you see that? Now, there's all kinds of ways in the New Testament to indicate purpose. You're going to find that the two quite prominent ones are right here. And you've got hina that shows purpose, and we'll be noting others. All right, now then, number 2. The infinitive with the article is used in most of the construction in which other nouns, which any other noun is used. The infinitive is used with such verbs as dunamai, thelo, zeteo, archomai, and so forth. In fact, the infinitive can be used with almost any verb that can be used with a noun. All right? He's stating this. Thele akuin ta euangelion. He wishes to do something. He wishes to what? To hear the gospel. That isn't difficult, is it? He wishes to hear something. He wishes to hear the gospel. All right? Now then. He is not able to serve him. He's not able to what? To serve him. Now the infinitive is used with nouns, most frequently with those expressing time, fitness, ability, and need. Okay, he's going to give you how the infinitive is used. Just like any other noun is used. We have what? We have power to become the children of God. Or we have what? We have authority. You see the verb? And then you have the object. And then you have genesthai. We have authority to what? To become the children of God. All right, now, he has faith to be healed, or, remember, sothestheni, or sozo, means saved, or to be saved. He has faith to be saved. Now, number 3, the infinitive is used with adjectives commonly, such as axios, dunatos, hekanos. I am no longer worthy to what? To be called a son of thine. Now then you see the infinitive is used with the adjective axios. Now then, dunatos estinauta philoxai. He is able to guard it or to keep it. Right? He is able what? He is able to guard. So you have the 2 illustrations there, how the infinitive is used in adjective. Now number 4, the infinitive with the article is used with many, many prepositions. Well now, what has he been telling us here? He's shown us how the infinitive is used as a noun, one with the article, one without the article, how it's used with adjectives. Now it's how it is used with prepositions. Okay. Before Philip called thee, I saw thee. Before Philip called you. Well, what's called? Phones is your infinitive, isn't it? Before Philip called, I saw you. Now then, he spoke a parable because he was near to Jerusalem. Because what? You have dia. Because he was near to what? Jerusalem. Now then, next one. After he died, matter with your infinitive. After he died, they went away. I said this to you, or I said these things to you, now ace ta plus the infinitive, in order that you might not remain in sin. Now he gives you a little note, which you ought to really file away well, because you're going to see it so many times in your reading. Ace ta and an infinitive is a common construction to express purpose. And they marveled while he was tarrying in the temple. Just another illustration of how the infinitive is used with the preposition. Now then, we ought to go through these observations hurriedly and see if you have any questions. Observe that the case of the infinitive has its proper meaning. The prepositions, as with cases of other nouns, help out the meaning of cases. That's what prepositions do. And the same thing with the infinitive. What the resultant meaning is depends on the meaning of the word, the case with the preposition, and the context. There are three things there that you ought to remember quite well. Because that little principle and that little rule is absolutely true when it comes to the matter of interpretation of tense in the verb. It says the resultant meaning depends on the meaning of the word, the case with the preposition, and the context. Now, in the interpretation of verbs, for instance, you must not only know the basic root of the word, observe the tense of the word, but also the context. Now, here's one of the exceptions that we took with reference to an article that was written concerning qualifications in 1 Timothy chapter 3. And they had a proposition that a husband being, a man being the husband of one wife, denotes a present tense indicating that his present life in its existence is one that is a man that has one wife, indicating that as far as a leader is concerned, so long as he has one wife, he qualifies. Now, by such, they imply, and this is the reason why many works hold to the position they do, that it is the argument simply against plurality of wives. In other words, you're not married to two women at the same time. Therefore, so long as you have one wife after another, doesn't make any difference how many wives you have, just so long as you have one wife at any time. Well, now, they might get away with it by just noting the present tense, but that's just half the story. And the other half is, what is the basic concept of the root of that verb? And the basic concept of the root of that verb is Amy showing state of existence, eh? Not only time, but state. And so it's quite impossible to be a faithful exegete of the word of the Lord and not note the basic concept of the verb as well as its tense. So it doesn't mean one wife at a time, but it means that he must be a man who is of a state of existence, state of being. He is a man that is a husband of one wife. And being an arthros, that denotes his character also. So he is a man of such character as being a one-wife man. So it has quite a lot of bearing as far as an accurate exegete of the word. Well, I believe you can read the rest of this as well as I can and study it out. Now then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign you 3 of these little sentences here. Do, if you will, number 1, number 3, and number 5, as well as 2 more verses. 2 more verses in your 1 John. That would give us, make us finishing verses 3 and 4. Verses 3 and 4 in 1 John chapter 2. Okay? For the next lesson. Now then, what I want to do is I want to look at this past lesson as far as the exercise is concerned, before we come to a translation of our New Testament. Now then, verse 1, exercise 1 on page 145. Let's turn to paragraph 354 as far as our exercises are concerned, and note what we have here. Wes, would you like to read that in the Greek and then translate it and explain it to me?
A clethe de ha Jesus ton gamon.
Okay, fine.
But Jesus was called unto the marriage.
All right. Or but, and, now, whatever you want, whatever way you want to use de. Now then, as far as the position of de, where is it in your sentence?
In a post-positive position.
Post-positive, meaning, of course, that it cannot stand first in the sentence. Therefore, the first word in the sentence is eklethe, of course, showing that de is post-positive. Now, parse for me, if you will. Parse for me eklethe.
Eklethe is third person, singular. First aorist indicative passive
Of kaleo. I call. Exactly right. That's exactly right. Third person singular. First aorist. Passive indicative of kaleo, I call. Now then, what case is ha Jesus?
It's in the nominative case.
All right. Now, being in the nominative case, how does it function in the sentence?
It functions as the subject
The subject of what?
of the verb.
Of the verb. All right. Now then, functioning as the subject of the verb, what do we have by way of the subject expressed in the verb and the subject in the nominative? We have agreement there?
Yes.
Third person singular.
Third person singular.
Yeah. Jesus, he. See? He. All right, great. Now then, what is ace?
Preposition.
Preposition. And what case is ace used with?
Locative.
No. That's N.
Accusative.
Accusative. Yeah. All right. And it's showing the direction of movement. Isn't that right? As far as it can go. All right. What case is ton gamma?
It's the accusative.
Okay. Why is it the accusative?
Well, because of the form of the word and also the article.
It's not the article, but the
And the preposition.
preposition. Ace always takes the accusative case. Now, some cases they'll call this the object of the preposition, but I don't want to do that just yet because I want you to see more of the idea of the functioning by virtue of the action which we have in the sentence. All right, that's fine. Number 7, Dwayne.
Ekthe ha Jesus hupatu pneumatos eston eremon.
That's Tain. Tain
Oh, okay, right. Estain eremon on piros thenoi hupatu diabolou.
All right, fine.
Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tested by the devil.
All right. Now then, Dwayne, parse me eichthay and explain it to me.
It's third person singular, first aorist passive of I'll go, I lead, bring or go. And it's the same number as Ha Jesus, he.
This is third person singular then. Huh? All right, fine. Now then, it is a what tense?
A first aorist.
And the voice?
Passive.
Passive voice. Passive voice. Now then, it came from what?
I'll go.
Came from ago. Now then, why is that a key?
It's a liquid or whatever you call them. It's changed.
It's changed before the theta to the key. Okay? Now then, why is that eta?
Just the thematic vowel, a change.
Not the thematic vowel.
Well, with the augment put on it.
The augment, epsilon and alpha, change to eta, right? Now then, being in the passive voice, now your subject is what?
Jesus.
Ha Jesus. That's your subject, and it is in agreement with the subject expressed in the verb, isn't it? All right, now then, what is hupa?
It's ablative.
Is what?
Ablative.
All right, what part of speech is it?
It's a preposition.
It's a preposition
Showing
which is used with what case?
with the ablative.
All right, now what does this show?
Agency.
All right, now then, hupa. When you have the hupa, we'll just put down the Spirit, and Jesus, Jesus didn't go himself, did he? We know that because of that verb. That verb is in the passive voice. And if you have a passive voice, the subject doesn't do the acting, does it? The subject has to be acted upon. Sometimes that subject is acted upon by a direct expression in the sentence, or sometimes it isn't expressed. But when it is acted upon, that's what we call agent. The agent that does the action upon the subject. And when you have the hupa plus the ablative, and that's the case, that is showing direct agency. Can you remember that? Please do, because that is most important. You have three particular kinds of agents. You have direct agent, you have intermediate agent, and you have impersonal agent. Now, those are three that are specific stated. There are other things involved in agency, but those are three. Sometimes you have the direct agent called personal agent, so forth. But here, you see that Jesus was led. I'll go. I lead, I bring, or I go. Jesus was led by the Spirit. By the Spirit. See that? Now then, let's go. What case is tain arraignment?
Accusative.
Function.
It's the direct object.
Of what?
The preposition.
Well, all right. But ace is used with the accusative case, not the direct object. But all right. Now, parsimony, perastheni.
It's first aorist passive infinitive
First aorist passive infinitive of what?
of perazzo, I test or tempt.
All right. I test or I tempt. Now then, Wes, notice that that's a passive infinitive. See that? Now what follows that passive infinitive?
Hoopa.
Hupa, the preposition. Therefore, he's going to express to us also an agency, isn't he? To be tempted by, what case is to diabolou, Dwayne?
Ablative.
All right. Now then, I know by virtue of this particular hupa, now of course you have the infinitive, but not a finite verb here, that Jesus was tempted by the devil, the direct agent with reference to that temptation. Are you following? See that? All right, that's very good. All right, there's a couple of rather interesting sentences. Now, we had number 3, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Wes, would you like try number 3 now?
Hade Hiako Luen Altan Legon Ego Crayan Echo Papa Su Baptiste Thenai.
All right, fine.
But the one who hindered him was saying, I have a need to be baptized by you.
All right, now then.
I found this one really hard.
Yeah, that's right. Parsimony, de echoluen.
It's third person. Okay, third person. Singular. Isn't that it's a participle, isn't it?
No, it's not a participle. You can't have a participle with an augment.
Just dawned on me that sentence.
All right, now, this is a hard one because, you know, it's involving a finite verb, it's involving a participle, it's involving direct address. How do I know it's involving direct address? See your capital epsilon? I have need to be baptized by you. That's your direct address.
I see what you're supposed
Now
to
then,
say.
what is the subject there?
Of that phrase that he said, or the
No,
other
what is the
first part?
what is the subject of the clause before the direct address?
I.
Huh?
Subject would be legon.
All right, it is in the nominative, isn't it?
Right.
Now then, what is de?
There's the post positive.
All right, fine. All right, let's just see how let's just see how Dwayne came along on this. All right, Dwayne, suppose you translate that much for us then.
The one saying, I have need to be baptized by you, hindered him, or by thee hindered him? By you hindered him? As in he hindered him? No?
Was hindering him.
Was hindering him.
Yeah. All right. But the one saying, I have need to be baptized by you, was hindering him. Now that's a hard one. That's a difficult one, because you see, actually that whole thing acts as the subject of the ekoluin. See that? Now if you didn't put in the direct address, I have need to be baptized by you, you would translate it this way. But the one speaking was hindering him. See that? Because ha legon is your participle in the nominative, which is acting as the subject of the imperfect verb. See? The one saying was hindering. See that? Do you see that, Wes?
See, what happened last night was he was trying to translate it and having difficulty, and I threw Diekaluan out to inside it, and I gave him this good explanation why it probably was, but I just realized it was a big mistake.
Yeah.
So I convinced him how good it was.
In other words, he led you astray.
It just dawned on me now, the situation.
I was waiting for his new translation. Totally.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you got to be careful of these new translations, and also you got to be careful of these new translators too.
That's what threw him off.
All right. Because, well, let's just put it on the board there. We'll just take a little time. Ha. De. De. Ek. Ko. Lu. And. Auton. Legon. All right, boys. Now, then you have your direct address. Okay. All right. Now, we know this is the verb, don't we? We know that's the verb. He gave that to us in the footnote. And it's...
Dr. Clark, I have a question.
Yeah.
How come the participle couldn't be the verb? Like saying, isn't saying a verb?
Oh yes, but you have a verb expressed. And this is nominative, isn't it? Therefore, as nominative, singular, with your... Yeah, I'll just erase this, we don't need it anyway. We know that's third person singular, imperfect, indicative of active.
It isn't imperfect, eh?
It is imperfect because right there is your augment. See, your alpha's dropped out and your epsilon is there. That's an imperfect, third person singular. Was hindering. Was hindering. Now then, to get your subject, I know I've got third person singular. Well, does the rule of concord hold here? Yes, it does, because I've got a subject in the nominative singular. Therefore, he was hindering. Who was hindering? The one saying was hindering, isn't that right? So therefore, even if we didn't have the direct address here, the one speaking was hindering him. See? Now, since we've got the direct address following saying, all of that, we'll just erase this. We'll put down here. that'll be dead, huh? Okay? Now then, the one speaking, all of that goes right in there. See? The one saying, I have need to be baptized as you, was hindering him. See? Follow? Because this is the direct discourse of the one doing the speaking. See? Now this is not direct address. All we have here is we have the subject saying something, but that one who was saying it, he was hindering him. See? Oh, that was a hard one, but that was a good one. Now that's just real fine reading. Now then, in that direct address there, what is echo?
Echo is the verb,
Verb?
and acts as the subject.
Yeah. What is the subject?
I.
I. That's right. First person singular. What case is crayon?
It's in accusative
Function?
as the object.
Object of the verb. Now, I have need. Okay, can you parse for me baptiste thenai?
It's the first aorist infinitive.
First aorist passive infinitive.
Passive.
A baptizo. Now then, what case is su?
Su is the genitive.
No. What's it used with there?
Ablative.
Ablative, because it's used with
Hupa.
hupa, showing agency. See? To be baptized by you. All right, now that was a good one. That was fine. All right, boys, you can have a lot of fun with those, can't you? Well, we'll have to stop at that. We're well over, so. But now you have your lesson for tomorrow, and as well as the translation. Okay. Lesson number 43. Let's get on over here a little bit, and then we'll get back to our translation. We've only got 4 more sentences to catch up, I think, in our translation. But let's get past these perfects and some of these words that you're going to be using quite a little bit for some help. Now, he doesn't give you a great deal by way of vocabulary. However, notice that there are some vocabulary words on page 150. Now, in this particular lesson, he's going to be dealing with the perfect and the pluperfect. Now, here are 2 more tenses, and I believe this will be the last by way of tenses. We've had the present, we've had the imperfect, we've had the future, we've had the aorist, and now dealing with the perfect and the pluperfect. And I've always found the perfect and the pluperfect to be very, very simple. Now he gives for us the conjugation of the perfect indicative active on page 150. Now observe the formation of the words. He's using luo. Now the perfect indicative active of luo is laloka. Now I have loosed. I have loosed. All right, lalokas, laloke, lalokaman, lalokati, lalokasi, or lalokan. And the perfect active infinitive is lalokenai. Now, right off the bat, what do you see by way of similarities that you have already learned? What are some of the similarities that you've already learned?
The endings?
Yes. You've learned the a, as, e, aman, ati, an, haven't you? That they are the endings for the first airs, right? However, instead of it having sa, it's ka. You see, you have the kappa. Now that's one of the signs of the perfect. Ka, kas, ke, kaman, kati, kasi, or kan, and kenai. Now then, as instead of the first aorist being sa, it's ka, but like the first aorist, there is an augment plus the duplication of the stem. See? Le, 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 le. And you will observe that the infinitive has the reduplication. Okay? All right, now then, he calls your attention to the two forms of the third person plural. Now we might look at just a few of these observations. The verb stem lu is prefixed. To the verb stem lu is prefixed its initial consonant lambda with the augment epsilon. This is called reduplication. Now you must remember that when it comes to the perfect, you're talking about reduplication. Okay? The suffix ka is added to the reduplicated verb stem. That isn't too difficult. All right, now then, the personal endings seem to be the secondary personal endings, except asi in the third plural. Now he says, all right, I want you to know the first perfect, how it is formed with verbs ending in a vowel, a liquid, or a lingual mute. So he is going to discuss for you how these are formed when you have the words ending in a vowel, a liquid lambda or rho, or a mute tau, delta, and theta. Okay, now the vowel stems. If the final vowel of the stem is a long diphthong, ka is added to the reduplicated verb stem without change, such as pe, pistuka. Now you see you've got the epsilon for pistuo as far as the stem is concerned. Do you see that, both of you? All right, now then, he adds to that your kappa alpha plus the reduplicated pe epsilon. If the final vowel of the stem is short, it is lengthened before ka as, now he's going to use as an illustration, nekao, I conquer. Now then notice how he forms the first perfect when the vowel is short. Ne, neke, ka. The alpha is lengthened to the eta. Now we've gotten pretty familiar with this, haven't we? All right, now then, poi e o. I do is pe poi e ka. Play ra o is pe play ro ka. So your epsilon and your alpha are changed to the eta, your omicron is changed to the omega, and you have the kappa alpha stem, kappa alpha ending plus the reduplicated stem. Now, he just explains what I've just stated. Here, alpha, epsilon, omicron follow the same principle of lengthening as in the future and first, aorist, active, and passive. Now then, when it comes to the liquid stems, and you add kappa to the reduplicated ka to the reduplicated verb stem as stello, notice what happens. It's s tal ka for the reduplication. You're going to see it below here. But now what has happened here? You do not have a what we have learned as reduplication. Instead, you just have the augment with a lambda dropped out and the kappa added. Now then, for the lingual mutes, as tau, delta, and theta is dropped before the kappa as sozo. Now then, notice it's se, so, ka. Se, so, ka. Here you have the sigma, epsilon as reduplicated, only with the kappa alpha suffix. Are you following? All right. Now then, verbs beginning with a vowel, two consonants except mute or liquid, a double consonant, z, xi, psi, or rho, form the duplication like the augment. Rho is generally doubled. Thus, agapao. Agapao. Perfect is that. Agapa, agapeka. 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 Stello is estalka. Zerino is ramai. Now that as a rama is going to be explained just a little bit later here. Now, what do we say about this? The best way to observe that these are perfects is your kappa alpha. Okay? And suppose you forget what has happened as far as the little rule, paragraph 363. I'd really star that 363 if I were you, as well as that which is going to follow, because this is going to be one of the helps in remembering. But the way I remember, if I forget about these so-called irregulars, which are not irregulars when it comes to the liquids and so forth, is I observe the kappa alpha ending, and I pretty well come out on top. Now, verbs beginning with a rough mute, phi, ki, theta, have the corresponding smooth mute, p, kappa tau, in reduplication. Thus, phileo is pe, phileka. Now then, notice those three stems. I mean those three changes. Maybe I ought to put that thing on the board, just to call your attention to it. He's going to take the word phileo. Now then, he says as far as this word is concerned, it begins with a rough mute phi. Now, he says, in order to give you a perfect, so he's going to make it a P. Fe, le. Now then, what happens to the epsilon? Changes to the eta, doesn't it? Then with your kappa. And the rule, recessive accent follows. So there is your stem, beginning with the rough. So you make it pe. All right, now then, he does the same thing with an asco. Te, theka. A few verbs have a seemingly irregular perfect, as genosko, egnoka. Horao is oraka. That's it. Now then, in the formation of the perfect active, a few verbs add alpha and not kappa to the reduplicated stem. These are called second or strong perfects and are older than the kappa perfects. All right. Now then, he's going to just simply say this to you. You have some second perfects. And the second perfects do not have the kappa, but have the alpha. Like as akuo, it's a, ke, koa. Genomai is ge, gana. Grapho is ge, grapha. Erkomai is elelutha. Now that's quite an irregular one from Erkomai. Pasco is pe, panta. Petho is pe, poitha. Fugo is pe, fuga. So the key as far as the second perfect is the kappa drops out. Just the alpha. Okay, now. The tense in Greek. Now he's going to explain this. And this is one of the most interesting words or interesting truths concerning the perfect that you're going to have. In fact, I just love the perfect in light of what it means concerning salvation. All right, here. The tense in Greek called perfect is really a present perfect. The perfect presents the action of the verb in a completed state or condition. When the action was completed, the perfect tense does not tell. It is still complete at the time of the use of the tense by the speaker or the writer. The perfect expresses the continuance of completed action. It is then a combination of punctiliar action, durative action. This kind of action expressed by the perfect tense is sometimes called perfective action. Now, having said all that, this is the way you can diagram it. The perfect tense looks at an act that was done in the past and the continuations of that act remains right up to the present. So, as far as the present is concerned, dealing with the perfect, you know the act was done back there and it continues on to the present. Now in Colossians chapter 3, and you probably are not able to read that at this juncture, but in the 3rd chapter of the book of Colossians, it says this, "For ye died, and your life," and this is the perfect, "has been hid." Has been hid with Christ in God. Now that word hid looks at the act that was done sometime in the past. And it is still hid. And always will be hid. Next second is going to be present time. Next second is going to be at that time. Next second that time. Next second that time. So every second and every hour and every day and every month and every year that you live in the present always looks at that life of yours which was hid back there in some time in the past and always remains hid. Therefore, what about one's salvation? If my life is hid with Christ in God, it looks at a completed act. Absolutely so. And that completed act, the results of that completed act, continue on to the present, and I don't care when that present is. One second after another. In other words, your life is always, always hid. Isn't that right? Absolutely so. And so, when it comes to the perfect tense, if one were faithful to this one tense alone, the the perfect tense, he could never be an Arminian. Never be an Arminian, because the Arminian believes that you can be saved and lost, saved and lost, saved and lost. How can your life ever be lost if it's hid with Christ in God, and it always remains that from the very moment you trusted Christ as Savior? Just a marvelous truth. All right, now then, paragraph 368. The perfect tense as tense is timeless, but in the indicative, the time element is present. The perfect indicative generally expresses the present result of a past action. And that's just exactly what I stated right there. It then has to do with the past and the present. The English perfect is not an equivalent to the English perfect. The translations given in the paradigms are not at all to be taken as equivalent to the Greek perfect, but as a means of associating the verb meaning with the verb. Octensart of the verb applies to the perfect. That is, he's going to give you two illustrations here. Gegrapha. All right, now this is a second perfect. You don't have the kappa, do you? I wrote, and the statement is still on record. All of that meaning just by that perfect tense. Now then, another second perfect, allelotha. I came and am still here. Looking at the act of coming, and the result of that coming continues on. Now that is your perfect tense, fellas, and that is a wonderful tense to just rejoice in with reference to the wonderful grace of the Lord. Now then, 369. The pluperfect, past perfect indicative active of luo is elelocame, elelocase, elelocay, elelocamen, elelocati, elelocason. Now observe what he says. The forms in brackets do not occur in the New Testament. However, learn that conjugation. Learn it, because it will help you understand that particular conjugation of the pluperfect. Now, let's notice these observations. The pluperfect is made up on the perfect stem. The thematic vowel is epsilon iota. The personal endings are the secondary personal endings. There's an augment before the reduplication. The augment is usually dropped in the pluperfect in the New Testament. All right, let's just put that on the board and explain by virtue of illustration what he has said. All right, now we're going to take the word luo. Now then, we're going to make a first person singular pluperfect active indicative of that luo. All right, the first thing I know is this, that as far as the perfect stem is concerned, it is a kappa. Now then, it says the ending is ain, came. Now then, I have to give a reduplication and also an augment. See that? And so there is the key to the pluperfect. It has the reduplication and it has an augment in front of the reduplication. However, he says, in the New Testament, this is usually dropped out. The dead giveaway is the epsilon iota. Cain, case, K, Cayman, Katie, Kason. See that? So, for the ka, cos, ka, common, kati, kason, or kasi, all you have to learn is the Cain, case, K, Cayman, Katie, Kason. And the peculiarities between the perfect and the pluperfect. Now then, what is meant by the pluperfect? All right, the pluperfect looks at action like this. An act done in the past, and the results of that act completed also in the past, and here's the present over here, right there. And so the perfect tense looks at that act done and the results of that act also completed in the past from the present. See that? So that's the reason I had loosed. I had loosed. Your had expresses something that's done in the past. Okay? Now then, he says, there's also a second pluperfect. The second perfect, you just add the alpha to drop the K. Drop the kappa. Now then, the second perfect has a pluperfect. The pluperfect is made on the second perfect stem and is called the second pluperfect. Now then, see, get a mind? He gives you the present, now the second perfect. Ge, gana. All right, now then, here is the third person singular. He's jumped down to the third person singular here to just show you how it's made with reference to the second pluperfect. You have your epsilon, which is your augment, your ge, which is your reduplication, then you have your stem, and then you have your ending a. Okay? Now then, both in the pluperfect and in the perfect, the second perfect, the second pluperfect, drops out your kappa. All right? That's the difference between the perfects. The pluperfect expresses continuation of completed state in past time up to a prescribed limit in the past. Well, that's just what I illustrated for you right there. All right, is there any particular question that you want to pose at this juncture? All it is learning, learning, learning. Now then, let's see if we can get a couple or three sentences here for you to do. All right, let's just try something easy. Let's take number 1 and number 4 and number 6. Okay? Now then, we'll probably have a little time then tomorrow to do some translation and answer your questions with reference to these particular lessons. Okay? Fine and dandy. All right, let's continue and get through the perfect tense so that you can have it as a unit before we really stop. In fact, we only have one more lesson before we have to have our quiz. And I think after we get through that lesson, then I'm going to back up with you, and we're going to finish our translation. We're going to answer questions concerning the exercises which you may have had, and see if we can't pull any loose end together. So our lesson for today is in 44, and he continues with the perfect tense. The perfect tense. And when you get through this, well then of course we'll be dealing with some other very interesting things, but we'll have the main tenses covered. All right, the vocabulary as far as this lesson is concerned is before you, not too hard by way of the vocabulary. But what he's introducing you to now is going to be the perfect tense by way of participle, and then your middle and passive along with your pluperfect along these schemes. And then, of course, you have another one of your conditional sentences. All right, now then, the declension of the perfect active participle. Now again, I think it needs to be rehearsed in your thinking that a participle is going to have a declension, even though it has a tense. Thus you see the twofold aspect of the participle. It's both noun and verb, or adverbial and adjectival. Now he gives you the scheme. And observe, as far as your declension is concerned, you do have the reduplicated stem, don't you? Le. Now then, you will remember that as far as your aorist participle is concerned, well, there's some strange things about that. However, right here, remember the reduplicated stem and watch where the accent is. Now then, in the masculine and neuter, what declension does the perfect active participle follow? You tell me. Third declension in the masculine and neuter. All right, what declension does the feminine follow?
First.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Third declension, masculine neuter. First declension in the feminine. So now you see how he's just been building on that which you have previously learned. Then we just hurry over the observation because we pretty well looked at it. The perfect active participle is made on the perfect active stem, which we've noticed. In the masculine neuter is declined in the third declension, feminine first declension. The accent seemingly is irregular. It sure is irregular. One of the things which really helped me with reference to your perfect participle was where the accent would fall. Usually you would expect the short ending to go way back, isn't that right? But it doesn't. All right, now then, in paragraph 374, the second perfect. Now what did we learn about the second perfect yesterday, which is unique? What did the second perfect have yesterday? First perfect has the...
Doesn't have the kappa.
That's right. It doesn't have the kappa. You just have the alpha. See, the first perfect has the kappa. Second perfect, no kappa. All right. The second perfect active participle is made on the second perfect active stem and is commonly declined, like lelukos, leluquia, lelukos. Okay. Thus, he gives you the little scheme. The present of lambano, okay, the second perfect of it is elefa. All right, you're going to make the second perfect participle. So it's elephos, and then you follow right on down the line, os, anta, atas, ati, ata. Okay? Elefuia, fia, fuia. No, it's fuia. Exactly the same. A, as, a, an. Okay? Elefas. Okay? As, atas, ati, as. See? That's how the scheme works. Now then, shift gears. He's going to get you out of the participle now, and I want to talk to you about the perfect middle and passive indicative of luo. Okay. Lelomai, lelosai, lelotai, lelumatha, lelus, lelusne, leluantai, perfect middle and passive of the infinitives, lelusthai. See? Now then, the easy way to remember that, maisaitai. Methas the anta. Observe the stem of the perfect middle and passive is the reduplicated verb stem. Now the primary middle endings are attached directly to the reduplicated verb stem. There is no thematic vowel. Okay, now then, A, he's going to give you how to translate it. Translation of the middle, and the passive is, I have loosed myself. I have loosed myself. Now then, make it passive. I have been loosed. Right? I've loosed myself. Again, you see the reflexive in the middle. The passive, I have been loosed. I am the one that's been worked upon, whereby I have been loosed. Now then, verbs with stems in a short vowel, such as alpha, epsilon, omicron, lengthen the vowel, as in the future aorist and so forth, before the personal endings. Okay, he's going to make now a middle and passive of plerao. So you've got the reduplicated stem, haven't you? Pe, play. Now then it's romai. The omicron has been lengthened to the omega. Now then, when it comes to theomai, well, what do we got here? It just plain drops out. Theomai. A little irregular there, but that's the way it is. Now then, he deals in paragraph 377 with the stems, the lingual, the palatal, and etc. Okay, you can follow it along. Go back to paragraph 240, as well as looking clear back in the back to paragraph number 31, and study out how these things are formed. Now, in 378, the pluperfect indicative middle and passive is formed by adding the secondary middle endings to the perfect middle stem. Sometimes there's also an augment. The pluperfect indicative middle and third person plural of luo is ele lunta. Now that's the pluperfect. You're going to want to make that a perfect, aren't you? Because in your New Testament, you're not going to have the augment, the epsilon. But how are you going to be able to tell? The way you're going to be able to tell is that you've got secondary endings instead of primary endings. See that? You got the anta instead of lutai. Lutai, that's right.
That's flashing away there. 2 minutes.
Okay, now then, 379. You see, 378 gives you the pluperfect middle and passive. Now then, 379 gives you the middle and passive participle. Now he's following the same scheme through, isn't he? The perfect middle and passive participle is formed by adding the middle participle endings, menos, mene, menon, to the perfect middle stem. Thus, the perfect middle and passive participle of luo is, in the masculine, lelumenos, feminine, lelumene, neuter, lelumenon. Here's your perfect middle and passive participle. With the exception of the accent, it is declined like the other participles, menos, a, and on. Paragraph 380. It needs to be remembered that the perfective action runs through the whole perfect tense, and the octinsart of the verb stem modifies the tense action. Thus, the perfect participle then may represent a state or a completed action. The time of the perfect participle is relative to the time of the principal verb. The time of the principal verb. The action of the participle may be. Now then, he says the action of the participle may be either simultaneous or antecedent. All right, as that which is coincident with that of the principal verb. They saw that he was already dead. Okay, they saw what? That he'd already died. The action saw time is the same time as dead. Now, can be antecedent to that of the principal verb. Okay? Many of those having believed were coming. Okay? Your participle. Having believed was prior to the coming. The perfect participle may be used in any of the constructions in which other participles are used. So, it is just simply getting acquainted with your forms, noting this little difference and significance with reference to the time as far as the participles in the principal verb. Okay?